So let's begin with then the question that I'll put to you guys. Do you know what times we're living in? Have you noticed a behaviour change? Have you noticed, your environment changing? And have you noticed it in a short period of time? Maybe over a long period of time. For some people, they've known for a long time that things are changing, and let's ask the question: are they changing in a positive manner? I'm talking about attitudes of people, their behaviour, and I'm also talking on the other scale of things, more to the point, with nature. Just for instance, I popped over to the city to pick my parents up, because usually on a Thursday they come over to me and we have a meal together. I try and do that at least once a week, and I try and stay in touch, if I can, on the phone as well, or maybe on Skype sometimes. But while I was on the drive, there was a wasp on the window, and that's unusual to me to see things like that. I mean, I've seen bees as well at this time of the year. I mean, right now we must be having on average around 10 degrees Celsius. I think we've had one or two maybe grain frosts this winter so far, and there are still flowers flowering in the garden. But I was having a bit of a conversation with my wife last night, and I was saying, you can see, over this Christmas holidays, you get together with your family and you can see that there are, even within my family, noticeable changes with the behaviour of some people. It seems like some are becoming a little bit more bitter. They're angry. It's noticeable. But I, as well as many people, would have known this for a long time. I certainly have known this for well over 7 or 8 years. And you invest a bit of time into it, and you know where it's going to go. I mean, if I was to go to my doctors and start talking about some of the subjects I do on this channel, do you know, before I had left that office of my local GP, he would have written out a prescription for some sort of, drugs to make me not think so sharp as what I do. Perhaps, I don't know what they called, temazepams, is that what they subscribe? These psychotic drugs for controlling psychotic behaviour. Not that I feel I'm psychotic, but I guarantee you, if I started to bring up some of the subjects I do on these videos with my doctor, he would say you were depressed. It's not a case of being depressed. It's a case of being trapped in a situation that you cannot do nothing about. And you can only talk to a very few people about it. And some of those people are people on this channel. We have Skype conversations. We know what is going on. And, very few people do. So if you're aware of what's going on and what times you're living in right now, then you're blessed with that information. But it's a bit like, I know it's a cliche, but it's a bit like the film The Matrix. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill? Tomorrow you'll wake up, if you take one of those pills, not knowing any of the difference. What I'm saying is, it doesn't make you a better person for knowing at what times you are, other than the fact that you may have took some form of preparations. That if in some certain circumstances you will be in a better position than others. Had you not took those, then you would have been definitely, I believe, in a worse situation. But you can't tell people, you cannot tell some people about the times that we are in right now. They won't have it. And, you can't help but bring up sometimes what it says in the Bible. And, as soon as you mention that book, when did it get to the point that when you mentioned that book, eyebrows naturally started to raise? and eyes started to roll in the back of people's heads. When did it ever get to that point? Because I'm sure there was a point in time where, it was a subject that was, pleasantly welcomed and discussed about, but now it is not. And that is a bit of a pity, because you see, if you only read the last few paragraphs, what they're trying to say in those last few paragraphs of Revelations is, don't add nothing to this book and don't take nothing away, or something will be added to your life or something will be taken away from your life. And I believe the reason is for that is because some information was placed in that Bible. And I believe I've mentioned this before, that some of our recorded history and events, as you know, to mention a few, the floods, Sodom and Gomorrah, and a few others, which some of you may know, were put in that Bible, I believe, for a reason. And the reason why they would say such a thing at the end of the Bible is do not take this out, because it's important information. And it was embedded within a religion so that it would last the test of time. You cannot deny it. The Bible is over 2,000 years old and goes back many, probably 1,000 years before that, in any case, because, we see the similarities in the Sumerian texts with regards to similar stories. So, it's a very old book, but, and I've said this before as well, haven't I? You can read the book, or you can really read that book and understand what is going on. And I believe it is the measure of certain behaviour that was recorded that brought about certain events. I mean, we're talking about the Bible, here we are in the West celebrating Christmas. And some kids, believe me, do not know anything more about that day other than it is a day for receiving presents. And that I find shocking. But, a lot of people will know it's about the birth of Christ. And, it is another thing. While we're on the subject of light-hearted topics, some people believe, right, they're very confused that Jesus is God. Yeah. Even though they know that he was supposedly God's only begotten son. Yeah, it's incredible. But if you ask me who I would put my faith in, and I know a little bit about this subject because I've done a lot of research into it, I came across a unique equation that give me more insight. So, if we're going to, okay, let's just get it off our chest and talk about it. God, what is it? To me, it's living nature, and it is conscious, and that equation proves it. I don't mind if a few of you want me to have another shot at making a bad attempt at trying to explain this equation. I'll do that for you. But to me, that's what God is. It is nature. The nature not just of this planet, but of this solar system and of the universe, and it is conscious. This equation, which is mathematic, which is supposed to be the universal language, states that it is conscious because of the way in which it's recreating things. But, if I had to give something to something, it wouldn't be to Jesus Christ, and it wouldn't be to a lot of other names that people have for their gods. It would be, for me, the universal conscious. And, if you ask me to demonstrate what that was then in some form, well, I could only say that it takes on every form. It is the trees, the grass, all the animals of every kingdom, and that's what I would say. But getting back to where we was talking about, Christmas Day, and a lot of people not even knowing now what the actual meaning of Christianity is and why we celebrate Christmas is only going to be, over the coming years, less known. Even though they do teach some of these subjects in schools, so that kids do have an understanding of some religion. But yeah, if I went to the doctors and started discussing some of these subjects with him, he would write me out a prescription. And it's crazy. It really is. It's insane. And knowing where you are in this time doesn't make it any better. Even though, you know, you're a very logical person, you put things in a logical and concise manner, it doesn't help. At the moment, I'm sure, you know, I would say a majority of you know that there is some economic tension right now, globally. It seems that slowly the IMF are leaking out the true scale of events that took place back in 2007, 2008. I'm talking about the market crash, which at the time wasn't really told to people, but now it's more commonly told, I suppose. You know, it is the situation where, you know, when more and more people know about what really went on the inside, and the majority of people don't, then eventually people talk more commonly and freely about that subject, and it comes out. Well, it's taken this long for it to come out. It seems as though the global economy really did collapse back in 2008, and they've not managed to put it back on track. And in any case, in my view, or what I've seen them try to do, would not put it back on course in any case. They're telling us right now in this country, and I'm not the only one, and I probably am doing a little bit better off than some others, but they're telling people like me with qualifications, professional qualifications, that there is work out there. Yet for 6 months, you know, applying for, you know, 100 jobs every fortnight, not one interview. You get the picture. There is no jobs out there, and it's not the fact that you just, you know, you've not been applying for these jobs with, you know, agencies, but you've been applying for jobs across the range, you know, wherever you've seen them come up, and with many agencies. So there's no jobs out there, and should there be in any case after a global collapse? No. But what it is, I don't think they understand is that they are expecting people to be stupid, and people aren't stupid. And what I'm talking about is they're saying go and apply for jobs. And I think if they had the balls, they would probably turn around to some of us and say, look, if you just apply for jobs, you're doing what we're required to ask of you, and therefore, you know, you'll get a small amount of subsidies. Well, they call them benefits, don't they? But it's absolutely insane, because if you look at the government statistics on the OMS report, you'll see that the GDP of the UK, and this is a similar scenario for all Western countries, Europe, including the US and Canada, like I say, across the range, you'll see that the GDP, for instance, in the UK is at 0.5%. That's the gross domestic product. So, you know, that's poor. There's not a lot being manufactured. And when you look at the consumer price index, the CPI, you see a similar picture. It's 0.1%. So nobody's buying. Yet, having me explain this to someone in the job centre the other day, they still didn't get what I was trying to say to them. I was saying, if no one's manufacturing and if no one's buying, then there surely isn't going to be more jobs being created. And, you know, if you know the truth about this, then you know you're wasting your time applying for these jobs. It's not that I'm giving up. It's just the reality of things. It's the times that we're in, and this is what I say, do you know what times you're in? Because it isn't just problems that human beings are causing each other right now. It is nature actually attacking us full on, and most people don't even know about it. On my other channel, I'm sure there was something said in one of the videos that really offended the system, to the point where they did what they did on that channel. Now, some could say it's paranoia, but I really believe it was the case. And what I believe was the case was with regards to the climate. and what they're saying, global warming, when, I said it's the opposite. And, I've spoke to many people who have agreed with me with what I've said. You might get a little bit of warming, but if you're getting a bit of warming, then more evaporation's taking place in the water cycle, and you're dumping more water vapor into the atmosphere. And then you're going to get, when it passes over land and increases in altitude, more precipitation. You're going to end up with more floods. You guys know it. You've seen it on the news. Floods everywhere. But what happens is that this leads to a positive effect, and I've talked about this in videos. What will happen is that the atmosphere will become saturated with water vapor, and at that point, no sunlight will be able to penetrate through the clouds, or if some does, it will be in small quantities, and that will lead to cooling. If no solar radiance gets to the surface, then it will lead to a cooling effect. And when you get cooling, you have snow fall instead of this rain. Now, can you imagine over the northern hemisphere the amount of rain that we've had all of a sudden turn into snow in that quantity? Well, that's what we're facing in the not too distant future. And once you get snowfall over the northern hemisphere, you also have a perfect reflective surface to keep the planet cool. And what we're talking about here is, what we're witnessing is the early events of an ice age. And it should be no surprise to scientists when I say that we are heading for another ice age. We certainly are. And you know it as well as I know it, that it was on the cards for many, many years, that we were supposed to have already been in a glacial period. And that, it has been a slight delay. Now, if that's been towards, the global warming, then caused by CO2, which I doubt, because now we're seeing graphs emerge that there's a breakaway from CO2 and temperatures. And there's a lot of scientists, and I've been, like myself, for years saying CO2 is not the cause of global warming. If anything, things will thrive more in in an atmosphere with abundant CO2. So, that's what we're looking at. But the other thing I feel on that channel, which I may have mentioned, which probably was close to the truth, is that the relationship between the Arctic climate and the magnetic pole migrating, taking it along with it, could also be the cause of, that ice age. Because let's face it, according to these so-called scientists that talk about global warming, this has only been talked about since the 1980s. Well, the magnetic pole was shifting a long time before that, but it was only up until about the 1980s when things started to get a little bit more faster as they went along. What I mean is the pole migrated more distance in shorter periods of time. And as I've showed in videos, the pole has stepped up 3 or 4 gears as it's gone along. And then recently we see it deviate from its course, and that really is of concern, because I think that the magnetic field is already starting to break down. I think we may be very, very close, if not already at that point of 40 degrees. And the reason why I say that is because of the deviation in the North Pole. As up until now been tracking in a straight line, and that was heading towards Siberia. Now it is slightly deviating, further south. So I think we are in a point in time now where we're going to start seeing things change more rapidly. But what I'm talking about is just the effects of nature. What is more of a concern to me is, as we get closer and closer to a societal breakdown, and it's going to happen, guys. If you think it's not going to happen, well, I can tell you now, you can take the bank, it's going to happen. But what alarms me more than anything is the behaviour of people. right, I can guarantee you at that point in time, you are going to see humans do some pretty barbaric things to each other in order for themselves to survive. You know what, we're seeing it already. Have you seen how the elites are preparing for themselves to be tucked away very comfortably in these luxurious, deep underground bases, thinking that what is taking place will be, in their lifetime over? Yeah, no foresight. We're in a lot of trouble. If we go back into an ice age, you know what's going to happen? Is there's going to be a stampede of people to those warmer places on this earth where, some vegetation can thrive and crops can be grown, but we're overpopulated. We've got 7 billion people on this planet, and I understand people saying that this is still a big planet and there's still a lot of uninhabited countryside out there and people can survive, but no way. I guarantee you, no way will 7 billion people survive. There's going to be a lot of people fall, and they're going to fall within weeks of societal collapse. And, it's just the things that people are going to see and witness during that. I mean, how many of you would survive if I left you on the Arctic ice sheet right now? Could you live like an Eskimo or an Inuit, is it? One of these indigenous tribes that still, teach their family members and their young the skills of survival in these climates. Could you live like that? Because if not, then your only other choice is to get probably somewhere where it's warmer on the earth. Where food is going to be a scarcity in any case. But it is the thing, when people do have to migrate, just like the caribou do in Siberia, they're going to have to leave all those valuables behind. And the true value of those valuables right now is nothing. You will swap that Porsche or that brand new 4x4 or even your house for a couple of tins of food when you're starving, because it'll have no value. True value will come down to true resources, and for you as human beings, those are food and water. And, that's why I say, do you know what times you're in? Do you know what you're facing? This is not depression. This is not, fear porn. This is what's happening. And, here's another thing, guys. All these countries at the moment that are involved in bombing Syria amounts to a world war, at war. You think about it. China, Russia, Germany, France, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Turkey, the United Kingdom, all these countries are bombing one country. Tell me that is not a world at war. Tell me it's not a world at war when all these countries in some way or form are sanctioning each other right now. How does that work? Isn't sanctioning a form of war? Maybe soft war? Yeah. It's shocking times that we're in right now. And it's negative, I know. It's not positive. And the outlook is even more bleak for the future, because these problems are only getting worse. The climate's getting worse. The general attitude of people is getting worse. And if you want to know what comes next, probably the answer's in that book that I began this video talking about, that Bible. Because it describes in some circumstances that just before nature went about sorting these problems out, that there was behavioural patterns in two circumstances, and one circumstance for you to realise yet already, some of you may already know, but there were certain behaviours that was more apparent in them times, that led up to these events, what nature um, did, let's just say, the floods and Sodom and Gomorrah. And if you read Revelations, there's a promise of the earth going through a similar, or should I say humans going through a similar scenario where the earth is used against them. It's, it's down to you guys to realise what times you're in, for you to know what's to come next. And maybe that, if you're not already preparing for it, and it's going to be very difficult for people to prepare for what is coming, but at least they'll be a little bit better prepared than if there wasn't at all. So, guys, it's a very bleak outlook. So make the most of it whilst you can, if you can. Because things are going to get worse, you're going to notice it. I just thought I'd share a few thoughts with you guys, That was the purpose of this. Like I say, I had a conversation with my wife about a similar thing, and I was just talking to her about, tightening the families up a little bit. It's a time for people to work together and, just be a bit more honest with each other and be a bit more loving with each other. That's what we should be concentrating on more than anything, And let's hope that the worst of what is to come is a long way off and not, as it may be, very close. Because I don't know how some of you guys even are going to take it when you start witnessing some of the behaviour of human beings and what they're capable of doing and what they are going to be doing. So this is a cycle that seems to go round regularly. You just think of some of the atrocities of the Second World War, and that might be close. Cannibalism won't be off the agenda for some of these people. They'll be back to it. They'll be left with no choice. What will you eat? You've got to survive. There's some form of way, You'd be surprised what you will eat. So, guys, as always, you take care. We'll continue in the new year with monitoring of the North Pole and climate, and occasionally, we'll discuss the increasing poor behaviour of humans from time to time, and give it some thought. What times are you in? And as always, guys, you take care, and bye for now.
Spanning the globe to keep you informed. This is the Earth Frenzy Radio Show. Interact at 646-478-5297. Send messages in the chat room or use Blog Talk Radio's Click to Talk feature. Sensational and electrifying talk radio for the Internet. It's the Earth Frenzy Radio Show. Be prepared to journey beyond reality. Broadcasting live from the magnificent Feliciana Hills of Louisiana. Here once again is your host, Steve Shaman.
Good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Earth Frenzy Radio Show here on the Blog Talk Radio Network. We're devoting today's program to the mysterious and ever-fascinating world of crop circle formations. And we'll be discussing some of the most intriguing discoveries for this year, as well as what the formations may be conveying in the way of messages or warnings to the inhabitants of planet Earth. Patty Greer, the award-winning filmmaker and documentary producer on the study of crop circles, will be with us to talk about her newest film, Adventure. This is her second appearance on this show, the last time being in August of last year, 2009. Crop circles are not a modern phenomenon. They have been reported as far back as the late 17th century. Since that time, there have been numerous eyewitness accounts of crop circle formations being created in under 20 seconds time, which cases are accompanied by sightings of brightly colored incandescent balls of light or structured flying craft. Interestingly, in 1996, a pilot who was flying above the Stonehenge monument saw nothing out of the unusual in the vicinity of this celebrated site during his first flyby. However, after doing a second flyby some 15 minutes later, he was astonished that a huge 900-foot formation comprising some 149 meticulously layered circles suddenly appeared next to this heavily guarded monument. It took a team of 11 investigators more than 5 hours to survey this formation. Of course, there are many stories and reports about these formations and who or might be responsible for their creation. And yet, if these formations are determined to be real in their origin and makeup, then what is the message it conveys, and what does the future tell us about this unexplained phenomena? Patty has traveled extensively in her search to reveal the truth about crop circle formations, their origin, and its message. Her recent work in film production has not only covered the extraordinary topic of crop circles, but has also included UFO visitation and extraterrestrial life in the universe, and most notably, the 2012 time frame as a period of spiritual transformation and enlightenment for all of humanity. So we welcome her back to this show today. Hi, Patty.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm fine. Now, your most recent documentary film, Crop Circles 2010 Update, The Wake Up Call, received 2 EBE awards as Best Feature Film, UFO or Related, as well as Best Musical Score within a UFO program at this year's International UFO Congress and Film Festival. Now, what does your latest documentary film entail, and what message do your viewers hope to come away with that have seen this film?
You know, the first thing I want to say, especially because Mother's Day is coming up, is that I come from a very straight family. This is the first movie where my mother and her husband both looked at me when it ended and said, "That was really good. We really get it." So for me, that was the big one. Happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there. But I think what happened is that now that it's my 4th movie, I'm looking at it more analytically. The first 3, I think I felt like kind of a puppet that I was actually picked up from a crop circle and given a lot of information because I've never done anything to do with making movies. I never had any interest. I never had any training. This was not my plan. I laid in a crop circle a few years ago and had an out-of-body experience that was extraordinary. And when I came out of it, I was laying in the crop circle still, but I had a new, my vision was seeing dimensions that I had never seen before. So something shifted in my visual input to my brain. All of a sudden, I can see plasma. I can see another dimension. And it happened that day in a crop circle. I didn't know what else happened. All of a sudden, I was going around saying, "Wow, look at all this stuff in the air. Isn't this interesting?" So it was exciting in the moment for that purpose, but I didn't realize that I had been most likely downloaded the data to somehow even hold the movie camera, which I do now, and run it. And when I open the door and I look at all these numbers moving, I seriously today couldn't tell you what all of them mean, but I make the movies by myself up until the final edit. And I think that I'm being worked. I think that I am working with a higher dimension, and I believe it happened in the crop circles because it's so important to get the information that the higher dimensions are bestowing upon the inhabitants of our planet. You know, we have an opportunity. We're listening to all the stories about the Mayan prophecies, the I Ching prophecies, even the Bible, and it's not really what Jesus said, it's just the reinterpretation of humans. But there's all this doom and gloom of 2012, and of course, where did all the money go this year? It went to the big, we're all going to die, and your children are going to bleed in front of you before they die, 2012 movie. I'm not slandering it, I'm just saying that's the concept. Let's all be really scared because it's going to hurt too.
Well, I mean, it was a highly entertaining, that of course was a highly entertaining movie that Sony put out. But you know, there's a lot of fantasy in that movie. It's not, there might be some realistic aspects to it, but a lot of it definitely was fantasy.
Absolutely. There were fabulous aspects of reality. Again, for me being what I know today, I have to make a conscious choice every morning to not let my brain go in that typical circle of what just happened to me literally this week and this month on the planet. I have to really wake up and consciously say, I am making a choice today to really not open those emails, but rather focus on the beautiful place I live, the fact that I'm finally in love. I mean, the good things. And I'm telling people, my children included, I hear what you're saying. God, it must be awful. And, God, what is it about today that's really cool? Because I swear it's true. We got to really focus on the good things. We're being tested. We are being so tested right now.
What do you feel that these higher entities are communicating with you in general? Now, I know you told us last time you were here, last August, that you were seeing these balls of light, and especially in your backyard, that these were occurring, or they were occurring in your bedroom while you were sleeping.
No. I didn't get to see it. The man that I was dating until that night, shall we say, or the next morning, he had an experience in my home. And the home that he had
that's correct. I stand corrected there. Okay.
No, I wish it had been my experience, because here I thought he was somebody that didn't have any rituals going on in his life. You know, he's a music producer, very successful, but complete tunnel vision. No spiritual conversations. I mean, it was a limited conversation that we had, which was very much toward music, and for 4 years. But then, on that night, in my bedroom in 2001, he had an experience, but he wouldn't have had it if I hadn't awakened him with talking in my sleep. And the words that I said that woke him up were, it's not what you see, it's what you don't see. It's not who you know, it's who you really are. Now, I'm looking at my boyfriend in the morning, and I'm going, oh, come on, you are so making that up. He said, no, you woke me up. You said it really loud, but that's not all. And then he laid there while two different balls of light, one at a time, came into my bedroom, went completely around the ceiling of my bedroom, out the hallway, and he watched it go out the lower living room window. And it was a white ball. He thought it was headlights outside of my bedroom window. And outside my bedroom window was a place that I used to call the animal stage. I hand-fed foxes and deer, and I took my time out there. So I knew I had a lot of elemental energy. And so why this man had the experience, and what he told me was the second ball that came in was white on the outside, and when it came through the wall, it was bright green. Now, I had never heard about orbs in 2001. I had no idea what he was talking about, and I knew he didn't do drugs, so I figured the guy is not crazy. I mean, he's really serious. And then he went on to say, I shook the bed so hard to wake you up, and you wouldn't wake up, that it was hitting the wall. The headboard was hitting the wall, and you wouldn't wake up. How could you not wake up to see this with me? I know what I saw. It wasn't a dream. So it wasn't until about 4 years ago when I started hanging out with all these people every summer in England in the crop circles. I sat down with Barbara Lamb, who's a very good friend of mine, and she's done over 1,800 regressions with people who have had ET experience. And I said, Barbara, why did this guy, who has no spiritual beliefs, it seems, get this huge experience in my bedroom? And I didn't get to see anything. He said he shook me, and she said, well, number one, you were locked out. And number two, this is not the first time this has happened to him, or he would not have physically been able to move. Because typically when the balls of light present themselves to humans, we see them, we feel our thoughts, but we can't physically move or scream. Have you heard that before?
Oh, yes, I have. Hey, I got a question for you regarding these balls of light. Do you feel that these and I'm sure it's a type of phenomena for some people that they actually see these things, but do you believe that they're actually behind some of the crop circle formations that have occurred around the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I believe these balls of light are some kind of interdimensional beings that come off the motherships that stay higher up than we can physically see because they're not ready to present themselves. They know that because it's been chosen to tell the world that they don't exist for so long, they know how hard it will be when they just present themselves. And they've kind of made an agreement with humanity, I believe, from all the channelers I speak to who don't like the word channelers. They say that what they feel now is that they're really trying to help us, but that they can't intervene. It's an agreement between the humans and the ETs, and very much like we have dark and light energy humans, we have that around the span of ETs. We know that we have ETs that are benevolent here to help us, and we know that we've got ETs that are working with the other side, and it's a mix no matter what. But I believe that the reason we're not starting, you mentioned in the blog that how many hundreds of years have we had crop circles? What did you say?
Oh, it's been like 340 years now.
Yes. And they used to call them the fairy rings or the devil rings because they couldn't really explain them. But a lot of the people in England that are really innocent and not of the city, which has manipulated our minds so much, they say, oh, yes, there are always fairy rings in the field of my grandmum. I mean, I've heard that a few times. And it's so adorable because they're so innocent with it. And they said, oh, yes, we've seen them for years. And I just went to Australia over the holidays where my daughter's dating a cop, and his aunt, who we went to Christmas dinner with, has been with the Melbourne Police Force for 29 years. At Christmas, I just met them. I didn't want them to know, hi, I'm the crappie girl, potentially the new daughter's mom. I'm just, hi, I'm Patty from America. That's it. And so the dad, he's doing the grilling of this huge, beautiful turkey outside and big white table set up. And he pulls the lid off the barbecue and he puts it on the lawn. And after he just turns the thing, he puts the lid back on. He looks over at me and he goes, oh, look there, there's a crop circle in the Barbie. I mean, they're making jokes. So I said, oh, gosh, now I'm busted, even across the world, trying to be quiet about what I know. So I look at the woman and I said, okay, I'm out in the public now. So you've been with the police force here for 29 years. Tell me the truth. Do you think there's UFOs? Have you ever had reports? She looked me straight in the eye and came really close and she said, Patty, it's common knowledge. I was like, what? I grabbed my daughter. I said, get over here. Your mom's not loopy. Listen to what the police lady of 29 years just said. And now she's not on the street. She's in Central Intelligence or whatever it is, the inner circle. And she said, Patty, it's common knowledge. In the center of Australia are all kinds of landing zones. We've all known about this. So I think we're in a country that's so interesting that what they want us to focus on is not the reality, but rather having a pedicure today would be so lovely. How about hot pink? I mean, how stupid can we play ourselves? So for me, this particular week, when I said I do this exercise in the morning, I got a letter yesterday, and I'm being very careful. I'm not slandering. I'm saying I got a letter from Countrywide, from my home loan company, and they said that one of their top employees had sold millions of people's personal information, and that we could get up to $50,000 per incident when these people decide or give it to the right person.
Is this sort of like a class action lawsuit or something?
It's a huge one, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was one of their top officials whose maybe wife left him. I shouldn't go here, but all it takes is one person to spoil the brew. And right now what's happening on our planet, because we're not listening to the messages of the crop circles. I'm going in a variety of places. The main question you asked, I think, is the greatest one. What is the message and why are they here? They have agreed not to come down in their ships and just vacuum up all the politicians that aren't doing it right. They've agreed not to come down and vacuum up. My brain just goes vacuum and vaporize. Just please give us our planet back. You know, the movie that I'm halfway through making now is called The Fairy Kingdom in the New Paradigm. And this is where I take my mind as often as possible. And I'm making up the world that I want to be in, but I'm also looking at the fact that I just met a man who came and picked me up with a truck and trailer and hauled my butt out of the city, like every dream I've ever had, and took me into the woods. I am sitting surrounded by the tallest aspen trees, and I've got a view of 14ers all around me. I got taken up to 11,000 feet with somebody who treats me with nothing but respect, and I've never had this in my life. I'm in a relationship now of the new paradigm. And every day I just look at him, and it's like I know that he's so honest and humble that I can say to him, you know, when the ships come and they say we need sperm for the new world, only one guy here. I'm serious. And that's rude. That's rude. But what I'm saying is I feel that I'm in my 50s. This is the first time in my life I've met a man who treated me with the utmost respect. And it's a really interesting time because last time I was on your show, I was in the middle of a shocking issue. This particular week, I learned that my Social Security number, my license, all my bank accounts were sold to somebody. I just learned this. Yeah. And you know what? You know, yesterday I learned that somebody had also compromised my Amazon account. So all my movies, I'm no longer going to see the money from my Amazon sales. It's absolutely stunning what humans are doing right now.
Well, you know, I discussed this with a previous guest, how the Internet can either be used for good or for evil, and it seems like these days it's used more for the evil purposes than it is for good. And like you mentioned, all these things that are happening, they're happening to a lot of people. Yes, yes.
And the only good thing about this, which is a really good way to look at it, and this saves me, is that Patricia Cota-Robles, wonderful, positive speaker all over the world. I've done a few tours with her and 103 light workers. We travel to all the Catholic churches and Mother Mary churches, and we do all this ritual. And again, you know, everything that we think, say, believe has an effect, especially when we're on the air or on TV or writing a book or making a movie or talking to friends or on a chat line. Our thoughts, words, and actions are really creating the reality of the new paradigm that we're moving into. And I believe the script is still being written. We are in the shift. And we can still go one way or another, but each person is going to choose their own way. Because every day can be heaven in your brain, or every day can be hell. And I've been through both. I've had every opportunity today to go either way, but I am so committed to being happy because I know how hard it is to go the other way. And the world is asking us to really be tested now. So what Patricia Cota-Robles says, which I love, is that she says, even though it looks as if things are falling apart, what's happening now is that the planet is coming back into balance, and everything that is out of balance is being pushed to the surface to be healed. Now, pushed to the surface to be healed, that means we're going to be having volcanoes, eruptions of corporate information coming out where we're all going, God, I knew it, but geez, really? So we're learning now about all these large corporations. I can't mention names, but I mean, I've had a shocking 2 weeks, and I'm just trying to get myself out of the system. My name's not on anything at my new address. I mean, I'm done. I really want to quit being a part of all of these things where all it takes is, it's not really the system, it's a few bad people.
Absolutely.
And in those bad people is a golden heart. They have every opportunity to heal this and quit being so greedy. But, you know, again, all of us that know better, rather than sitting around being angry all the time, which I wasted a few years, got to be honest, now I find a way to laugh my way through it or just be really positive because I know that my mood and everybody I talk to is going to be somehow affected. And because of this shift that we are in, we really have an opportunity to go one way or the other, and the Earth is on the tipping point. And because we've taken it this far, I think that's why the ETs are making themselves present now.
Did you learn anything,
crop circles.
Did you learn anything new at the UFO Film Festival this year, other than the fact that you won a couple of awards for your latest documentary? But what did you learn?
I learned a lot because I sat there, and it was the very first time I wasn't working. I wasn't filming everybody. I made a commitment to actually savor the program, and I showed my movie. They picked me for the opening night, which was great because my work and, a little bit of anxiety, which I get very little, was done. The movie played for the coolest group of people, and then I got the whole week to play. So my choice of play was to be there at 8:30 for the first speaker and wear myself in till 6, go to dinner, and then not miss a movie. I did 14 hours a day for the entire 8 days of eating information. And it was kind of like all the different tidbits that had been out there sprinkled around my mind were centered and grounded into aha. So there's a lot of information in me now, and the consciousness in me says, I don't want to be a conspiracy person. I know that I don't want to hardly even read the email that's sitting over there waiting for me from the guy in England that sends me the worst of it. Because there's a part of me the first years in the crop circles where the people over there are highly intelligent people. And so when you're dealing with people that are really talking about the things that are really going on the planet on a global scale, it's a very scary thing, when you get with the real conspiracy people that are speaking all over the world, and you stand there in the center circle and you hear them going back and forth. I found myself leaving. I couldn't do it. It's too toxic for my mind. So I want to say to all the listeners and to myself and you, Steve, that, we are offered so much information. What we put in is very much like making your dinner. If you put really wonderful, healthy foods together, you're going to have a great salad. You're going to feel good later. If you put in some toxic, nauseous, wilted, frozen, way overdated dressing, you're going to have a really toxic mix, and you're going to pour that in your body, and that's how you're going to feel. So for me, yeah, I took in all the information, but boy, I have a huge platter of those things over there on the right, way over there, not in my flesh bag, which is my body. I really have to make a conscious choice because they laughed at me the first year. I kept walking away. I don't want to know these things. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear you guys. So yesterday, I'm walking with this amazing man that I adore now. He's a very dear man. And my third day at the event, I got a lovely bouquet. The fourth day, he said, screw it, I'm driving 10 hours. I'm coming. I want to be with you. So he comes down there, and he spends, and I said, you got 14 hours a day because I'm not walking out. Even though I wanted, new relationship, but I said, you're in for a big one. So yesterday I said to him, as we're walking through these gorgeous mountains with a view, I want you to tell me the truth. You were at this UFO International Conference where people come in from all over the world every year. We get Stanton Friedman, Jim Mars, Dr. Lear, who takes out the implants. We get all the big guys that are on CNN talking about UFOs. Wendell Stevens, Robert O'Dean. These are regular people every year. The last two I mentioned.
Do you have any new ones, or is it just the usual ones that appear there every year?
Oh, no, there's always new people. And I think that's probably why I get treated so well, because I'm still kind of a newbie, but I'm like one of the chipper ones. I dress in bright things, and I kind of jump around, and I'm this goofy, happy person, and the rest of them are so damn smart and so intellectual that it's always heavy conversations everywhere. It is
I've
so
had
heavy.
Stan Freeman on my show, and believe me, he goes way above my head.
I love the guy.
Oh,
I
do
stand
too.
in circles.
Yeah,
I stand in circles with these guys, and then from 5 to 7, if there's a movie I can possibly walk out on, I go and sit in the abductee circle. No press, no recording devices. You cannot take notes. You can only be in there if you've had experience with ETs and you share your experience. So there's like 30 people that sit in a circle, and my heart was palpitating. My eyes were welling up. People are going through incredible things. So I said to Michael, my sweet man, I said, okay, tell me the truth, because I'm still confused. I have not been in a ship. I've not seen little grays running around. Haven't had sex with a reptilian, so I don't have first-hand experience. But I have been in the crop circles. I've been in probably 100 crop circles. I've laid down in almost every one, unless it was rainy, muddy. I've laid in a few muddy ones. Actually, I've just put my plastic hood up. I'm committed. I'm a true crappie. I am in it for the long haul, and I have gone out and done the night watch. I've seen the not balls of light ever creating a crop circle in front of me, but I've seen the white balls and the red balls in the distance doing very strange movements that aren't military firings, and they do have military things over there. So I know that they fire off a lot of the red ones, but those go up and they come down in a particular way. This is not what we're seeing when we sit out and do night watch.
When are you planning on heading back to England?
Oh, I'm going back this summer, and I'm going with my man. So the punchline of all this my man talk, because I haven't been with somebody that I respected so much in my whole life. The guy is absolutely brilliant. He's read so much about this stuff. So he comes to the event, and yesterday I said, are these people crazy? Am I heading into a group of really crazy people? Because there's 800 of us every year that meet at the UFO conference. 600 to 800 people a day. There's hundreds of us, and everybody's brilliant. I mean, I don't consider myself highly brilliant, but I hang with them, and everybody I talk to, my jaw is just sitting on my chest. And I said, seriously, are we a bunch of crazies, or do you think these people know more than the rest of the world? And he had to say straight up, he said, I think 80% are probably the more brilliant people on the planet that are really doing the most advanced work happening here. Yeah. And the other 20 might be crazy. And then he said, actually it's probably more like 90-10. He said, I felt really honored to be in that group of people and how they welcomed me. But again, when you're in a group of authentic, intelligent people that aren't egocentric, desperate pigs, they're going to honor you and treat you by looking you in the eye and welcoming you to their lunch table. And this is the difference that's happening now, and this is where the chafe is splitting. The good people that really have clean intentions are doing really, really good work, and we're having to really up our game because we know that we have to make up for, each light worker has to make up for 10,000 sleepers. I mean, seriously, Patricia Cota-Robles, who I want to believe says that, even if we are only 5% of the planet that care, that love, that truly are working into the new paradigm with the right attitude, if we stay focused and planted like an acupuncture point on the planet and only talk about the positive things and really enlighten the masses as much as possible, we can shift the paradigm.
What is the last crop circle that you were in that actually struck your fancy the most?
Every single one, but I want to mention that the first crop circle of the year happened yesterday in England. Yeah, I just got the email this morning. The first crop circle happened yesterday.
Is that a coincidence that it just happened in England? We know they have so many over there.
Well, let's look at the explanation of numbers, which is in all of my writings. A high 90 percentile of the crop circles documented and photographed in the world are in the area of Wiltshire, England. 90-something% of the crop circles in the world are happening within a 20-mile radius, approximately 20 to 30 miles of the Avebury Stone Circle, which is the largest stone circle in all of England, all of Europe even. And the Avebury Stone Circle is sitting on top of 3 underground streams that meet in the center underground. Now, coincidence or not, but most of the crop circles are not only sitting on ley lines, which are ley alignments, a line between one sacred site and another, but also most of them, high 90%, are sitting over aquifers, which are underground water pools. So it's believed by most of us over there that there's something about water and whatever the microwave effect is that these ETs are putting down onto the crop. I do believe that the video that's in 2 of my movies, and you can see it for free on my movie trailers, if you go to my website, www.pattygreer.com, PATTYGREER. You can look at either of my crop circle movie trailers, and you will see in 1996, John Whaley, a guy in England, sat up all night, then he fell asleep. But there's that sound that happens that all of us know. It's this whirling kind of stirring sound, and you know to get up and hit play. If you could possibly move your hands, hit play on the camera. So he was one of, like my boyfriend, the few people that got to hit play, and he filmed 2 balls of light coming in and creating a crop circle in seconds. It's this famous, famous footage, and you can find it on YouTube. John Whaley, it's called Oliver's Castle. Oliver's Castle is where it happened in the UK. But you can see it on my footage. In my movie, I'm sitting there. Now, this is my first movie. I had no experience whatsoever, but I started taking a ridiculous amount of photos, and I had 1,100 photos within like 2 weeks. It's like I didn't breathe. All I did was take pictures.
Why are the ETs, we talk about extraterrestrials being such a highly sophisticated form of life. Why are the ETs preferring to use crop circles as a way of communicating with people, as opposed to, let's say, electronic or cyber communication, or maybe even a more sophisticated form of communication? Why are they preferring to do it in this primitive way?
Well, interesting question, and I would only be able to guess, but my intuition says, do you remember when they came on some radio show and took over the wave and did that weird voice? How long did that last, and how long did it get talked about? Not very, and not very. But then a crop circle comes down in England, or Italy, or Germany, or Czechoslovakia, or Slovenia. They're happening in, last year, 60 different countries were documented that had crop circles, but 90% of them happened within a 20-square-mile radius of the Avery Stone Circle. By far the most fabulous ones. So I think that there's something about sacred sites, high vibrational people, and the fact that it stays in the crop until the farmer mows it down. So there's a longer opportunity for the message to be seen, photographed, filmed, expressed, and once it's filmed, it can go on further. Of course, a radio show can be recorded and played and played and played, but again, if they make jokes about it, they can disinform pretty quickly on one radio show or 2. But when you've got 156 crop circles one year and 153 the next, and these are only the documented ones, and by documented I mean somebody happened to be flying over the field low enough that week and looking in the farm fields to see. Maybe there are thousands of them. People just aren't looking, because a lot of them are really hard to get to. I mean, when we get over there, it is not an easy feat. You have to be liked. You have to be welcomed into the center circle to even get to know where they are. And somehow, again, I think there's like almost a magical choice process, because there's so few people even interested in the phenomena, which blows my mind. I mean, these things are huge, and the artistry is superb. And when you're inside a crop circle, my skin shakes. I get goosebumps head to toe, and the hair stands up on my arms and the back of my neck. There is something extra-dimensional going on there. You get dizzy, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, but I am seeing, as I look at the messages now, what are the messages saying? Last year, I was dissecting 2009. They had 5 to 6 different messages that were clearly large fish. What were they telling us? Look what you're doing to the ocean.
I have a feeling about that, and I'm gonna ask you about that in a little bit as to why, because we saw these jellyfish and fish and all these sea life appearing in these crop circles. So I have a theory about that. I'm gonna talk to you about. But I got several more questions I need to ask you, and we got 25 minutes, so I'm going to move along, if that's okay with you, Patty.
Okay, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, our guest on this segment is Patty Greer, the award-winning producer of the documentary film Crop Circles 2010 Update, The Wake Up Call, the 4th in a series of documentaries on the crop circle phenomena. In addition to her continued devotion to the study and filming of crop circle formations, Patty is also a talented musician whose music and lyrics are inspirational and naturally creative. Her film documentaries instill a unique blend of music that complements the message of her productions and leaves her viewers feeling a sense of peace and tranquility from the beginning to the end. Patty has been interviewed on numerous international radio talk shows and TV, and has also been featured in international film festivals. To learn more about today's guest and her documentaries, you may visit her website at www.pattygreer.com. Now, Patty, what's your feelings on the environmental disaster that seems to be looming at this moment down in my neck of the woods here, along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana and extending as far east as the panhandle of Florida? Do you believe that the ETs were warning us about this catastrophe before it actually happened?
I didn't get any of that sense myself, but I did get a sense that we have big issues in the oceans and in the water, and I don't know about that particular incident or New Orleans, when that happened, but I do believe that they are strongly drawing our attention to environmental issues and what's happening to our wildlife. Not only last year, 2009, were there a number of fish, there were also a number of birds. We had the phoenix, the thunderbird, the owl, another funny one, the sparrows. I mean, we had probably as many birds as we did fish. So, look what we're doing. Look what we're approving.
Look and are we learning from our mistakes? That's the big question, because it doesn't seem that we are, because this has happened so many times before. Look at Valdez up in Alaska. You think we would have learned our lesson from that, but this continues to go on for the sake of the almighty dollar.
It is. I saw a CNN report, and they actually allowed somebody to admit that he was paid $600 by Exxon to promise to not sue them if he were chosen to go out and work for a cheap rate to clean up the Exxon Valdez spill.
Yeah,
so all of those workers that were toxified and sickened, and all of them are suffering now. It's not a coincidence. All of them have been monitored, and they're all suffering. And they were asked to sign an agreement not to sue. So when we look at BP right now, I've only been watching the news, and I'm repeating things I've heard. I'm not creating gossip or slandering anybody, but I saw that BP is number 4, the richest corporation in the world, $25 billion a year average, and that they only have a responsibility for $100 million for this cleanup, and that the rest of the money gets to come out of our tax dollars, which are going to go up to clean up their spill.
Yeah, why not sock it to the taxpayer? Correct? We've been doing this all along, so why stop?
Well, it's a really, really hard time. I'm watching it, and I'm making phone calls because I'm willing to sit on hold and do wonderful things outside the phone. But it took me 9 hours because one of my phone companies, won't say their name, accidentally, put $1,135 on my phone bill. 9 different supervisors spoke with me, made me promises, and then I saw it show up on my phone bill, on my credit card, again. I finally gave up on them, and what I'm saying is, I said to them, you're lucky I'm not Michael Moore, because I'd have a heyday with you. Now, this is a huge telephone company, and now I'm at the top, and she took care of me, and she said, all 9 of those people, their heads will roll, their supervisors will be contacted. I said, lady, it's so wonderful that you're there, but it shouldn't take 9 employees when there's this many people that need work in the country. Why are you hiring people that either don't care, don't like your company, or just hate humans? Because, wow, that's ridiculous. It took me 4 months and probably 9 hours of my time sitting there on hold and talking to supervisors who none of them did their job.
Well, see, this is typical of human nature. Everybody waits until the last minute to get something done. You say, oh, all of a sudden, oh, my God. It's like a chicken with their head cut off, running around. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, you should have thought about this long before it happened. And this is the same thing with what's happening with BP down here in the Gulf of Mexico.
God, it must be horrible for you guys and your birds and your wildlife and your animals and your
we're
fish.
sick to death here in Louisiana, especially because the fishermen down along the neck of the Mississippi, because they rely on fishing for their livelihood. And without that, what are they going to do?
Yes.
But nobody thinks about that. They only think about, we gotta do what we can for BP, because without that oil, what is the country going to do?
They're going to go to Prius cars and intelligent cars and stop being so addicted to what we don't need. You know? I mean, we know better. As a race, we know better. So on a subconscious level, you had asked me another question that I'm loving to go back to now. Why crop circles rather than coming through the radio? Well, the radio people wouldn't believe. They would say, oh, it's some human. But you put down something like a crop circle at Stonehenge when the pilot just flew over 15 minutes earlier, and not only was it perfect circles, was it 140 in the Julia set? That formation was flawless.
140. Mm-hmm.
140. It was the Fibonacci sequence, which is, as you know, a mathematical wonder. It is not humanly possible to create that in wheat unless, and I hope I'm okay to say this on the air, but I let it fly in my movie, and I didn't use his name. I just called him the farmer. But he's about 80 years old, and he showed up at the formation where I was filming the main speaker in my movie, and she and I were sitting there. It was the most beautiful day in the Westwoods Formation in England. This is 2008. Sunny, 2:30 in the afternoon. She and I, and the guy that hauls my camera for me, Nick, he and I do music for my movies. So she and I are out there, and she's meditating in her little circle over there, and I'm setting up the camera in the big circle, and I scan the field 360 degrees. I'm like, how can this formation not have 30 researchers in it, or even 3 others? It's just us. It's just a gorgeous day, and this formation's only been here like 2 days. I had been in it the first morning because I insist on that with myself, but I came back and I brought her. And it was a very interesting day because I started to film her, and she is brilliant in the movie. And all of a sudden, here comes the first helicopter. And I'm like, oh, it's the people that, take pictures and, okay, hi, touristas, do your thing, go away. And they kept circling and circling and circling and circling. And then all of a sudden they flew away, and I was like, oh, thank God I could start the camera. And now I'm interviewing this woman, and she looks at me and she says, do you want to talk about martial law? And I went, hell no. That's going to be yanked in the edit. And she points up, and so I turned my camera up, and right above our crop circle, not anywhere else, and it was just she and I, after the helicopter left, were 4 mysterious X's in the sky. It was the darndest thing, and it was literally right over us. Now, we had to hike to get to this field. It was in the middle of nowhere. This is not a crop circle near the road where it's easy to get to. This one, we had to hike to get into, through the brambles, and so we're in the middle. I take pictures of it from way above, and the farmer says, why would anybody want to take pictures out here or do this work unless they were being well paid, which I don't imagine they are. So the 80-year-old farmer shows up, and I said, what do you think is causing them? And he said, well, it's possible because there's so many military camps around here that they are experimenting with some kind of laser. So that's possible. It's very possible that it could be they're trying to, those handsome gents, to perfect their military laser messages on the earth, or how to make matter lay down and behave. So I was really surprised he said that because I'd never heard that explanation.
Are we
so I
getting
thought that was
close to
interesting.
the time now where ETs are going to appear before us in their physical state and relay some sort of coherent message for that maybe all of us hopefully will understand? Are we getting close to that?
I don't know. Do you know?
I have.
Does anybody know?
I don't know for sure, but I kind of get a sneaking suspicion that we're getting very close to that time.
Well, the interesting thing about an answer to that is that it's already here. Yeah. It's already happening. It's already present. It's up to each individual human where you put your body. because I, on purpose, am taking my body over there to England to be in the crop circles this summer, because I want to be in a place where I will have an opportunity. Now that I've got a man with me, I'm going to be sitting out really late at night, and I am going to set intention like I never did before, because I got to say, I feel a little bit more protected. I was fearless. I was freaking crazy. From the day I laid in that first crop circle, I made 4 movies in 3 years. Almost every 6 months, I completed a full feature documentary because I had no life. I absolutely did nothing but film, edit, and learn and learn. I mean, what I did at the UFO conference, it's just kind of like I said, making a great salad. You just keep putting the ingredients in, which is all of our lives. You know, we're creating this beautiful smorgasbord of information for our mind. And we have an opportunity to put in some toxic and noxious thistle at all times. But boy, we better be really careful what we put in our temple, because today it really counts. Are the ETs here? I think so. Have I met one? Not sure. Not sure why I was kept asleep that night. That really hits me as strange, because I'm the one going, hey guys! I mean, after the UFO conference, I always go into the field. I take an extra few days and I grab a few people that are really passionate and crazy like I am, and we drive into the Sedona Desert and walk out till 4 in the morning. We've got our laser flashlights, and I mean, seriously, it's hysterical what I have done with people. We're out in the field going, come to us, you know, and all of a sudden one day it's going to slap me in the face.
Sense that I do, I actually have myself, but that time is speeding up. Everything is becoming so tumultuous and crazy in the world, and it's all going to come to a head at some time in the immediate future. Do you ever get that feeling?
I do. And I try and keep myself out of the fear of things changing instantly. But as we know, we could wake up and the banks could all be closed. As we know, we could wake up and have no gasoline, and then there would be no food in the grocery stores within 2 days. So it's possible that there could be a sunstorm and all the computers and telephones in the world go down. Can you imagine? And all it takes is one ball of fire off the sun, which they're predicting we are in that time. So it is very possible, which is what reminds me of my favorite line of Patricia Corey in my movie when she says, yeah, we're in martial law, but look at this day. Look at this glorious day. What are you going to do with it? And I tell you, that guides my life, because, yeah, it could change in a heartbeat. I hope it changes where the ships land in every big city and do their vacuum vaporization. I really do. I mean, I don't know how we're going to clean out the power elite. And the interesting thing is there's such a small number of them, and there's so many of us, but they have so much money and they control all the big corporations.
Yeah, even more so than the money, it's the power, and they hold all the power in the world. And as long as they do, people are set to the side and are helpless.
Yes, it's a very interesting helplessness time. So I think the most important thing for each human to do independently is to arm ourselves with coming back to nature. I think it's the most important thing we can do now, which is to get our minds less on the TV and whatever, shall we say, may be coming out of it toward our brains, and more on the garden in our backyard, or the hike that's down the road, or the tree that we can plant, because I think that the messages I'm getting overall from the circle makers is that humans have got to honor the planet or we're going down. I do not have the belief that all the ETs have been doing all this hybridization to destroy humanity and take over with all these droids. I don't believe that that's happening, but I do believe that we have been sperm donors and skin sample donors, and our animals have been lip and bottom sample donors. I think that they've definitely been working since the 40s to create a better species. I just hope that it is the good side doing it and not the other stories that we might be hearing, because we could really be in trouble. We know that the skies are giving us gifts every day. We know that things are being dropped on us. It's everywhere on YouTube. I'm not creating anything. If you want to, people know what's going on. So this is the biggest one that concerns me, is that we are being, on purpose, poisoned. On purpose, given Alzheimer's, diabetes, all these great diseases are being gifted to us so that these financial systems can stay working. But now that all this exposure is happening, Goldman Sachs, UBS, they're just being brought to the surface. Citywide, countrywide, they're all now becoming headliners. But what happens when the planet realizes how completely unruly they've been for how long, how much they've taken from each of us? But just myself, I've done an inventory, which I recommend to all of you, as well as to have all kinds of food stored and water stored, just in case there's some strange thing that happens in your town, a tornado or hurricane. We don't know what's coming, but we do know that we've hurt the planet and that we are doing so much testing under the water right now that our whales and our dolphins are actually beaching.
Well, other than stockpiling food and water, how can the average person prepare themselves for the changes that are happening, either from an environmental point of view or when taking into consideration the dismal state of our present society? How can people prepare themselves?
Well, I really think that it's an independent study per person, and it's really about getting back to the earth. I really think the punchline is going to be returning to nature. And my new film, which I don't know if I'm going to finish now that I realize, the business that I'm in is just too hard. It's too expensive for me to make movies anymore.
Well,
I spent over $100,000. It's what?
It's time consuming as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's a great way to spend my time. I love working with the ETs. I love making these movies. And when I look at the movies I've made and I realize I didn't watch anybody else's, I'm laughing because now I'm watching everybody else's movies and I'm going, how did I know that stuff? How did those people say yes to me? Why does Dr. Lear and Stanton Friedman always hug me? Why do they always say that I'm like the light of the party because I'm not the heavy one. I'm the giggly chick from Boulder, Colorado who finds it all rather fun. And it's because I choose to. I could be so gripped out right now with what I've dealt with the financial system of our country, with the dishonesty of people I know, friends, family, neighbors. We are starting to scare me. I don't know about everybody else out there, but I see it really coming to the surface to be healed. But as it's coming to the surface, it's going to be stealing from us. These systems, you guys need to really watch all your bills and watch your escrow accounts and watch all the things that the corporates are doing with your money, because I think there's blanket sweeps of overcharges and surprise little charges that are being dropped in to see if only 10% of the people are awake enough to notice, we got 90% of the other ones. I think that's happening a lot now because people are getting desperate. So as far as not just, I think it's important to have seeds and water, yeah, and I think it's important to have a garden inside your house or outside just to honor the earth, if nothing else, and to grow your own food so you know at least some of your food is pure and healthy. But I think the other thing really is purifying our minds. And that's what I started the show by saying, which is we're sitting on the tipping point and the script is still being written. What we feed our minds every day, and there is so much conspiracy to read, and there is so much light work information to read. There is a 2012 movie that'll scare the crap out of you, and then there's a 2012 We're Already In It movie by me that will give you faith and hope and give you tools to step into a new paradigm with faith. And I think that's what's happening to our people because we're being robbed left and right. People are losing their jobs. There's nowhere to get another one. Blah, 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 wah, wah, wah. And it's like we need to keep our faith. So I think part of the medicine of stepping into the new world is to look at the fact that I pulled out of the stock market and my company that had been doing my stocks for 27 years just kept 20% of my life savings, just kept it. So I've been dealing with that for 2 years. But what I saw was that there's no hope for the small person. And this is a company that's getting worldwide sued right now. It's happening everywhere, really a lot. So what I'm having to do is retrain my mind. Rather than to suffer of, oh my God, they just stole all this money and blah, blah, I'm saying, you know what? I need less things now, because look at my closet, seriously. I used to live in Denver and Boulder where I needed so much new clothing, and when I hear my daughter say, oh, this is so out of season, I want to slap them. You know what I'm saying?
We all tend to collect more than what we need, and it's probably good to cleanse ourselves a little bit in that respect.
It is, and I think the new paradigm is about cleansing. I think that a lot of people, I don't know how old you are, but I think people in their 40s and 50s and 60s are really getting rid of stuff now. And as we get rid of stuff, we're starting to realize we really don't need as much money as we thought we did, unless we want a greedy life, of course, to be better than our neighbor, have more, whatever, nicer car. But we really need less now than we used to. And as we are robbed by the big financial systems and we all have less money, we spend less out there on products, and then we throw less away, which is creating less on the planet of trash. And so ultimately it might be a good thing, not that I want to thank them for robbing us, but there's something good in it, which is where I keep trying to take my mind every day. Oh, thank you for stealing my money. And when I moved my last time, I had some movers that were not from this country legally, and I found them on Craigslist, naughty me. But they did a move, and so everything I owned, all my antiques, everything is scratched, chipped, shattered. So that was about letting go of my attachment to my stuff needing to be perfect. So I think we're all really being retrained. A lot of this torture, which we feel like is torture, is actually retraining us for a new world and a new paradigm where we take less from the earth, throw less onto the earth, and use less in general. Waste less water, let our trucks run out in front less time. I think it's really about now, and I'm going to repeat it again, honoring the planet, which we have forgotten to do.
Patty, there's some other things I wanted
suffering.
There were some other things I wanted to discuss with you today, but unfortunately we ran out of time on this segment. But I want to have you back, of course, again, and I want to thank you for coming back on the show, and keep us informed on what's going on in the fields over there in England, will you? Maybe when you come back, you can talk to us more about it.
Let me tell the audience quickly, again, Patty, www.pattygreer.com, PATTYGREER.com. And if you want to keep abreast of the greatest crop circles, basically all the documented crop circles in the world, go to the www.cropcircleconnector.com. And it's free. You can see every crop circle that shows up every day. And then for a small fee, like $15 or $20 a year, you can look into their archives and also get on a list. So every day when there's a new crop circle, they'll mail you photos of that new crop circle, field reports, everything. For $20, I think it was best investment I made. I'm always a member of Crop Circle Connector, but that's how you keep abreast of the crop circles in the world. They'll mail it to you every time there's a new one. I'm telling you, every day, all summer long, there is a new crop circle. These are not going away. They are not being made by humans. These are messages that humanity has got to start listening to.
So, let's begin with, then, the question that I'll put to you guys. Do you know what times we're living in? Have you noticed a behaviour change? Have you noticed, your environment changing? And have you noticed it in a short period of time? Maybe over a long period of time. For some people, they've known for a long time that things are changing, and let's ask the question, are they changing in a positive manner? I'm talking about attitudes of people, their behaviour, and I'm also talking on the other scale of things, more to the point, with nature. Just for instance, I popped over to the city to pick my parents up, because usually on a Thursday they come over to me and we have a meal together. I try and do that at least once a week, and I try and stay in touch, if I can, on the phone as well, or maybe on Skype sometimes. But while I was on the drive, there was a wasp on the window, and that's unusual to me to see things like that. I mean, I've seen bees as well at this time of the year. I mean, right now we must be having on average around 10 degrees Celsius. I think we've had one or two maybe ground frosts this winter so far, and there are still flowers flowering in the garden. But I was having a bit of a conversation with my wife last night, and I was saying, you can see, over this Christmas holidays, you get together with your family and you can see that there are, even within my family, noticeable changes with the behaviour of some people. It seems like some are becoming a little bit more bitter. They're angry. It's noticeable. But I, as well as many people, would have known this for a long time. I certainly have known this for well over 7 or 8 years. And, you invest a bit of time into it, and you know where it's going to go. I mean, if I was to go to my doctors and start talking about some of the subjects I do on this channel, before I had left that office of my local GP, he would have written out a prescription for some sort of, drugs to make me not think so sharp as what I do. Perhaps, I don't know what they're called. Temazepams, is that what they subscribe? These psychotic drugs for controlling psychotic behaviour. Not that I feel I'm psychotic, but I guarantee you, if I started to bring up some of the subjects I do on these videos with my doctor, he would say you were depressed. It's not a case of being depressed. It's a case of being trapped in a situation that you cannot do nothing about. And you can only talk to a very few people about it. And some of those people are people on this channel. We have Skype conversations. We know what is going on. And, very few people do. So if you're aware of what's going on and what times you're living in right now, then you're blessed with that information. But it's a bit like, I know it's a cliche, but it's a bit like the film The Matrix. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill? Tomorrow you'll wake up, if you take one of those pills, not knowing any of the difference. What I'm saying is, it doesn't make you a better person for knowing at what times you are, other than the fact that you may have took some form of preparations. That if in some certain circumstances you will be in a better position than others. Had you not took those, then you would have been definitely, I believe, in a worse situation. But you can't tell people, you cannot tell some people about the times that we are in right now. They won't have it. And, you can't help but bring up sometimes what it says in the Bible. And, as soon as you mention that book, when did it get to the point that when you mentioned that book, eyebrows naturally started to raise, and eyes started to roll in the back of people's heads? When did it ever get to that point? Because I'm sure there was a point in time where, it was a subject that was, pleasantly welcomed and discussed about, but now it is not. And that is a bit of a pity, because, you see, if you only read the last few paragraphs, what they're trying to say in those last few paragraphs of Revelations is, don't add nothing to this book, and don't take nothing away, or something will be added to your life, or something will be taken away from your life. And I believe the reason is for that is because some information was placed in that Bible. And I believe I've mentioned this before, that some of our recorded history and events, as you know, to mention a few, the floods, Sodom and Gomorrah, and a few others, which some of you wouldn't be to a lot of other names that people have for their gods. It would be for me the universal conscious. And, if you ask me to demonstrate what that was then in some form, well, I could only say that it takes on every form. It is the trees, the grass, all the animals of every kingdom, and that's what I would say. But getting back to where we was talking about, Christmas Day, and a lot of people not even knowing now what the actual meaning of Christianity is and why we celebrate Christmas is only going to be, over the coming years, less known. Even though they do teach some of these subjects in schools, so that kids do have an understanding of some religion. But yeah, if I went to the doctors and started discussing some of these subjects with him, he would write me a prescription. And it's crazy. It really is. It's insane. And knowing where you are in this time doesn't make it any better. Even though, you're a very logical person, you put things in a logical and concise manner, it doesn't help. At the moment, I'm sure, I would say a majority of you know that there is some economic tension right now, globally. It seems that slowly the IMF are leaking out the true scale of events that took place back in 2007, 2008. I'm talking about the market crash, which at the time wasn't really told to people, but now it's more commonly told, I suppose. It is the situation where, when more and more people know about what really went on the inside, and the majority of people don't, then eventually people talk more commonly and freely about that subject, and it comes out. Well, it's taken this long for it to come out. It seems as though the global economy really did collapse back in 2008, and they've not managed to put it back on track. And in any case, in my view, or what I've seen them try to do, would not put it back on course in any case. They're telling us right now in this country, and I'm not the only one, and I probably am doing a little bit better off than some others, but they're telling people like me with qualifications, professional qualifications, that there is work out there. Yet for 6 months, applying for 100 jobs every fortnight, not one interview. You get the picture. There is no jobs out there, and it's not the fact that you just you've not been applying for these jobs with agencies, but you've been applying for jobs across the range, wherever you've seen them come up, and with many agencies. So there's no jobs out there, and should there be in any case after a global collapse? No. But what it is, I don't think they understand is that they are expecting people to be stupid, and people aren't stupid. And what I'm talking about is they're saying go and apply for jobs. And I think if they had the balls, they would probably turn around to some of us and say, look, if you just apply for jobs, you're doing what we're required to ask of you, and therefore, you'll get a small amount of subsidies. Well, they call them benefits, don't they? But it's absolutely insane, because if you look at the government statistics on the OMS report, you'll see that the GDP of the UK, and this is a similar scenario for all Western countries, Europe, including the US and Canada, like I say, across the range, you'll see that the GDP, for instance, in the UK is at 0.5%. That's the gross domestic product. So, that's poor. There's not a lot being manufactured. And when you look at the consumer price index, the CPI, you see a similar picture. It's 0.1%. So nobody's buying. Yet, having me explain this to someone in the job centre the other day, they still didn't get what I was trying to say to them. I was saying, if no one's manufacturing and if no one's buying, then there surely isn't going to be more jobs being created. And, if you know the truth about this, then you're wasting your time applying for these jobs. It's not that I'm giving up. It's just the reality of things. It's the times that we're in. And this is what I say, do you know what times you're in? Because it isn't just problems that human beings are causing each other right now. It is nature actually attacking us full on. And most people don't even know about it. On my other channel, I'm sure there was something said in one of the videos that really offended the system to the point where they did what they did on that channel. Now, some could say it's paranoia, but I really believe it was the case. And what I believe was the case was with regards to the climate and what they're saying, global warming, when, I said it's the opposite. You may know. We're putting that Bible, I believe, for a reason. And the reason why they would say such a thing at the end of the Bible is do not take this out, because it's important information. And it was embedded within a religion so that it would last the test of time. You cannot deny it. The Bible is over 2,000 years old and goes back many, probably 1,000 years before that, in any case, because, we see the similarities in the Sumerian texts with regards to similar stories. So, it's a very old book, but, and I've said this before as well, haven't I? You can read the book, or you can really read that book and understand what is going on. And I believe it is the measure of certain behaviour that was recorded that brought about certain events. I mean, we're talking about the Bible, here we are in the West celebrating Christmas. And some kids, believe me, do not know anything more about that day other than it is a day for receiving presents. And that I find shocking. But, a lot of people will know it's about the birth of Christ. And, here's another thing. While we're on the subject of light-hearted topics, some people believe, right, they're very confused that Jesus is God. Yeah. Even though they know that he was supposedly he's God's only begotten son. Yeah, it's incredible. But if you ask me who I would put my faith in, and I know a little bit about this subject because I've done a lot of research into it, I came across a unique equation that give me more insight. So, if we're going to, let's just get it off our chest and talk about it. God, what is it? To me, it's living nature, and it is conscious, and that equation proves it. I don't mind if a few of you want me to have another shot at making a bad attempt at trying to explain this equation. I'll do that for you. But to me, that's what God is. It is nature. The nature not just of this planet but of this solar system and of the universe, and it is conscious. This equation, which is mathematic, which is supposed to be the universal language, states that it is conscious because of the way in which it's recreating things. But if I had to give something to something, it wouldn't be to Jesus Christ.